Remember my mother used to say, "Hey, mfana mavukhuluma." My boy, you're always talking. And what that did, Toastmasters and Enactus then refined my natural speaking gift. And in that refinement, today I get paid quite well.
Nice.
As a professional speaker.
That's amazing.
So as an entrepreneur, look back to your childhood or to your formative years and say, what was I just naturally known for?
Yes.
Because that's your gift.
Yes.
But then you have to refine it, because your gift will make room for you, but it must be refined and then monetized.
Yes.
So that's actually very powerful, because we would often see that as well with different entrepreneurs, where they get a contract, their margins are really good and everything, but you can see that the money has come, and what they're spending the money on, you're thinking, yeah, that business is not going to last, and that's actually a bit sad. And that's coming from a lack of, we discussed this actually last week, it's coming from a lack of financial education.
And what I say to my clients is, you don't pay the business. You pay the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yes, it's, let's call it Malibongwe PTY, but you are paying Tsepo.
That's also true.
And if Tsepo has not resolved his money traumas, his relationship with money,
yes,
Tsepo will go and get the GTI or Range Rover or Merc to show people that he's arrived, but his balance sheet is not strong enough to carry that, and then he starts heading into other trouble.
Hi there. Welcome to Monetize Your Business podcast conversations in partnership with FNB. Every single week, we chat to a phenomenal entrepreneur that's doing incredible work within their area of expertise. And of course, this week is no different. We are going to be speaking to Mlamuli Mbambo, who is a financial education expert. And this is something that's very important for all of us, but particularly among entrepreneurs. We need to get our money things in order. Now, before we get into that conversation, you know how we do over here. I've got my fabulous co-pilot, and I really want to pick his brain. Papa Biz, how are you this week?
No, I'm good. I'm glad we can be here. This is a topic that you guys know is very dear to my heart, so I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really good one. And any aha moments from you this week? Anything interesting you've learned within the business entrepreneurship space?
I finally got to read the book Good to Great. I've put it off for quite some time, many years.
Right?
Yes, Jim Collins. Yeah.
Jim Collins, yes.
And one of the passages that he wrote about, I actually just stopped when I read through it. And he spoke about how sometimes you've got to focus on having the right people on the bus. And that when you have the right people on the bus, you have to spend less effort on motivating people, less effort on talking vision and strategy and how things are supposed to be done. And I stopped when I read that, because I recalled a time, it was actually when we had our retail business. And we had done that common mistake. We took the best salesperson and we made them manager.
Yeah.
And, the store struggled for some time because, this person was really struggling to do things the way that we required, and there was a lot of chaos happening in the store. And it also took us forever to move them out, basically. And it took me back there in terms of how often do we as entrepreneurs, as we're growing our different businesses, really think, do I actually have the right people on this bus? And it's a very uncomfortable question, because we think of our team and we think it's not just a staff member. It's, you think about their family and people that are relying on them. But at the same time, we have to remember then we all exist actually to serve our clients.
Yeah.
And we're doing them a disservice by having the wrong people on the bus.
Absolutely. That's so, so true. And I think, I've been thinking a lot around this concept of spring cleaning your business and, taking out the weeds and the things that are no longer working for you. And that actually speaks to that. Who is on your bus? Are they really serving you? Are they in the correct position for their strengths and capabilities and value that they're bringing?
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. How would you rate the book, Good to Great? Let's say out of 10, 10 being the highest.
It's a bit of an older book, so
Yeah.
I'd probably give it 6 for me.
Really?
I'd give it a 6.
And it's such a classic, hey?
Yeah, it's a
lot
classic.
of
It
people
depends. I
refer
mean,
to
what you're growing and what it speaks to. I read about 2 books a month, so it's a bit of an older book. It's fine.
Okay. No, fantastic. Great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Mlamuli, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here today.
Nice one.
No, I'm really looking forward to our conversation because I think the work that you do is so important. Financial education is so important, and you are actually helping us to win at the money game.
Amen.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Now, before we actually get into those nitty-gritties, it would be nice to actually get to know the man that is sitting in front of us. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and your upbringing, just your early context before we get into the numbers?
Okay, so I was born in Mtwalume, in Kabayami Mtwalume. Mtwalume is close to Port Shepstone
Okay.
in KZN. And one of my first memories of Mtwalume is we stayed in a rendezvous. There's like a kitchen rendezvous and there's a sleeping rendezvous.
Oh, wow.
So the nice thing is when we'd visit my grandmother, and that rendezvous, there was no electricity at the time. So she would then tell us inganekwane, fables in English and stories. And what was interesting is that inganekwane always have life principles embedded within that story.
Wow.
So I think that was my first appreciation of story.
Yeah.
And also how story can actually teach.
Yeah.
Right, so that's Twalume. And then I think another highlight moment was when I moved from Indian school, Nizam Road,
Okay.
to Montclair Primary.
Primary.
Right? Right. Yeah, so I get there and I'm not that comfortable with my articulation of English because I come from an Indian school, right? And I'm here with white kids predominantly and some black kids that have been there.
Yes.
And to the point that I didn't even know, so I wanted to go out and vomit, but I didn't know what the word vomit is, right? So I'm like, I need to and then I just ran. When I came back, someone else explained, oh man, what he actually needed to say was.
Oh, wow.
And but then what happened was it was the 1995 World Cup, and they asked us to write a story about what happened. And not so my dad or stepdad wasn't really into rugby, but that day everyone was screaming Stranskri and hit the hoota, and so it was quite a moment for the country and at home. So I wrote a story about it, and to my surprise, the teacher put a star on it.
Oh, wow.
We walked down the corridor and she was telling other teachers and I was like, oh, I may not sound like them, but my writing of English is clearly a natural talent.
Yes.
Right. And that's something I sometimes share with other entrepreneurs, that the wisdom is not in the accent.
Yes.
It's in the substance.
Yes.
Of what you bring to the table and what you provide and how you communicate it.
Yes.
And I think in this country, unfortunately, sometimes we get hung up on said accent.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Right? So that was primary school at Montclair. And then I think the next stage would be high school. So I went to Durban High School, DHS. One of the interesting things there is I bridged an interesting thing where when you go to high school, typically you either the jock or you the nerd.
Yeah.
Typically, right?
Yeah.
So you're not usually the soccer captain, but good academically.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't typically have academic colors, etc., and be that. So, but I found that has been my gift.
Oh, wow.
In that I'm able to be a bridge to different worlds.
Nice.
And I think that is one of my divine and innate gifts of bridging worlds that usually would not come together.
Yes.
And how I found that has helped in financial education is that finance tends to be a language that finance people speak to finance people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Which is very
ROI,
intimidating.
return on investment, and
Yes.
but what I do quite brilliantly is I say, okay, so this is what this world is saying.
Yeah.
And this is the metaphors, the bridge, the storytelling that can be utilized to then speak to this world.
Okay.
Right. So I think I started in high school where I was transversing different spaces, but being okay in both.
Okay.
And then a part of me wanted to do drama.
Really?
Yeah, I loved drama. I had a songbook. I had remember Pella, back then you didn't have YouTube
Yes,
to
true.
see the lyrics. You had to actually write
Write them down.
press stop and write stop, right?
Yes.
So I started there, and then I started writing my own music. And I think if I was in America, I'd probably be Neo. No, I rated it. I can't sing, but I can definitely write good music.
Yes.
And then I had a poetry book, and I performed poetry
Okay.
on stage and stuff like that. And then I did Toastmasters.
Oh, you also did
excellent.
Toastmasters.
Yes.
So did
I
you do
think
that in-
everyone should do Toastmasters.
No, 100%. Did you do that more in school already or after school as well?
I did it in school initially. Wasn't sure what it was, but what they said to us was that you can only do Toastmasters if you have a certain average in marks.
Oh, really?
And at the time, as a young person, your ego is like, oh, okay, I qualify for that. I want to do that. But I think for me, it's a life skill. I think absolutely
Definitely.
everyone, especially if you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Now, we
because-
talk about it often how, entrepreneurs need to understand if you're an entrepreneur, you are a public speaker.
Definitely.
And you must hone in on that skill and work towards it.
Definitely. But even in corporate,
Yes.
you have to say, this is the value I brought, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I think it's completely across the board. And then in varsity, I did it, which is something I'll share with people, that you don't necessarily have to get a job or formal employment to learn a skill,
True.
right?
Yes.
So I studied BCom Economics and Finance because no black mother will agree that their child with academic colors will do drama.
Drama, yeah. It's not allowed.
It's not allowed.
Not an option.
Gonna happen.
Right. She actually wanted me to, so I got offered a bursary with Deloitte for accounting. So the compromise was that, okay, I can do BCom Economics and Finance. So as I did that, I also joined Enactus. It was called Students in Free Enterprise in my time.
Okay.
It's now called Enactus. If you're in university and you're watching this, please reach out to your Enactus society. Enactus, yeah.
Okay.
And what you did there is we took our skills that we learned and we went to the community and we would help them build their projects further or build their businesses further.
Oh, nice.
Oh, brilliant.
And shout out to University of KwaZulu-Natal.
Nice.
We win it quite a few times, and we won it in my year. And we went to Singapore. But in preparation of it, it's to present the projects that you've done.
Yes.
And I remember we were one of the few that actually didn't use cue cards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were presenting, we learned it and did it so many times that we presented it
That's quite
without the cue
impressive.
cards.
Yeah.
And what that does, projects were good, but what it does when you see that the judges see that, oh, they're not using cue cards and they are, then obviously you have an advantage.
Yes.
And what it did, I remember my mother used to say, hey, mfana mavukhuluma. My boy, you're always talking. And what that did, Toastmasters and Enactus then refined my natural speaking gift.
Yeah.
And in that refinement, today I get paid quite well
Nice.
as a professional speaker.
That's amazing.
So as an entrepreneur, look back to your childhood or to your formative years and say, what was I just naturally known for?
Yes.
Because that's your gift.
Yes.
But then you have to refine it because your gift will make room for you, but it must be refined and then monetized.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Otherwise, your gift will make room and you'll be frustrated if you're not monetized.
Now, I wanted to check in with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your business as it is currently, and then also about your book, Winning the Money Game, because you're an author, best-selling author as well. So tell us a little bit more.
Thank you. Thank you. So the business side of things, I think this is something I share with entrepreneurs, that sometimes there's a difference between your client and your customer.
Okay.
And I think I stayed too long trying to serve my customer, but not my client.
Okay, explain a bit
What do I
more
mean
on
by
yeah.
that? So B2B, business to business versus B2C.
Yes.
So in the room, when I deliver what I do, in the room, the people that are sitting there are the entrepreneurs that need to learn the skill.
Yes.
But my client is an ESD program
Okay.
director
Yeah.
or an ESD program,
Yes.
because they have the funds to pay me
Yes.
to then speak to the customer that sits in the chair.
Okay.
And for the longest time, I was trying to speak directly to either the employee or the entrepreneur or the student.
Yes.
But yes, they may
they're like
desire
the
it.
beneficiaries.
They're the beneficiaries
beneficiaries of-
of what I
you.
do. But my
Yes.
client
Yes.
is ESD or the employer or a corporate, etc.
Yes.
Okay.
So the client is the person that pays
that
you,
pays me.
and your customer is the beneficiary.
Yes.
Got it.
Right. And when we communicate to the person, to the wrong person, we then get frustrated as entrepreneurs.
100%.
Because yes, you get them to desire it, but they can't necessarily
Pay for it.
pay for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And then when I started shifting my messaging to productivity, disengagement, or what ESD programs find is that a lot of times they do brilliant work
Yeah.
in terms of the business.
Yeah.
But then the person gets the breakthrough or gets that contract, then they start having cash flow issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what I saw with, and I myself was in an ESD program, and I saw that the conversation of money starts from a place of balance sheets, cash flow projections, etc. That's the equivalent of starting education at tertiary.
Yes.
And you haven't done primary and secondary education.
Six,
Right? And what I say to my clients is, you don't pay the business. You pay the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yes, it's, let's call it Malibongwe PTY, but you are paying Tepo.
That's also true.
And if Tepo has not resolved his money traumas, his relationship with money,
Yes.
Tepo will go and get the GTI or Range Rover or Merc to show people that he's arrived, but his balance sheet is not strong enough to carry that, and then he starts heading into other troubles.
Sure, that's actually very powerful, because we would often see that as well with different entrepreneurs, where they get a contract, their margins are really good and everything, but you can see that the money has come, and what they're spending the money on, you're thinking, yeah, that business is not going to last, and that's actually a bit sad. And that's coming from a lack of, we discussed this actually last week, it's coming from a lack of financial education, which is what I love how you touch on it. I mean, our mentor is Robert Kiyosaki, and I've read all of his books, and fortunate enough to have met him this year. And he talks so often about, especially for entrepreneurs, you really have to focus on your financial education, because it can actually kill you at a point when now you're supposed to be thriving.
Definitely. So I start the conversation from a relationship place.
Okay.
Think of it of this way. So when I would go to Mtalume, I would help with, do you shepherd cows? No, you don't. What do you do with cows?
You heard cows.
Yeah, loose. Oh, you heard cows. Yeah, thank you. So I would assist with that. And in that, I knew the cows have to be at Dipini by 4 a.m. For some reason, it has to be very early.
Really?
Yeah, your cows wake up. I don't know why. But so and then I knew the different cuts of a cow, that this is eaten by the married people, this is eaten by young.
Oh.
So because cattle at that time was a representation, or it still is, of wealth.
Yes.
Wealth, yes.
And one of the things I always say is that we need to do our best to have the same relationship that we had with cattle, to have that relationship with capital. Because you wouldn't go to a club and kill 10 cows to show people that you have cows.
Yeah. 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 And yet we go.
Very
And,
clever.
and entrepreneurs do
Very
that.
clever.
Yeah, we get that invoice and we go, okay, so instead of then building the cows in my kraal, I then go to a club and I kill a lot of them and to show people that I have cows.
Yeah.
So when you start thinking of it in that manner, then you go, your perception of it goes different, right? So I start with that in terms of let's have a different relationship with that. For one of the questions I love asking is, would money marry you?
Okay.
If it was a spouse or a partner, given how you treat it, do you understand what it likes, what it doesn't like? How long does it stay with you? Does an invoice come and it flows? Does a paycheck come and it flows? Or does it actually chill and get to know you? Right? And then we address the beliefs.
Yes.
And one of the beliefs, so I grew up in UCC SA, United Congregational Church of South Africa.
Okay.
And then at school, I would go to the chapel, right? And it was interesting to me how the same Bible was interpreted or shared in a very different way,
Yeah.
Yes.
given the different,
Yeah.
right? And one of the things on Sunday, it was, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And two things I say to that statement is, one, the action word there is love.
Yes.
It's not money.
Yes.
The action word is love, right?
Yes.
So some entrepreneurs, I think we hold ourselves back because we want to be good, we want to be humble, because we don't want to fall in the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
First thing is the action word is love. So my dad loved Orlando Pirates.
Okay.
Right, I'm
Good
a Chiefs
man.
fan.
Good man. Yeah.
Dr. Kumalo, sorry.
Good man.
Dr. Kumalo stole me, right? And we'd watch soccer and his friend would come over. And in as much as I supported Chiefs, I would hope that Pirates win, because if Pirates loses, he would kick everyone out.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
Like the braai would end, he would kick people out. So I could have said the love of Orlando Pirates is the root of all evil in our household.
Based on
Right.
your lived experience.
So the action word
Yeah.
is the love.
It's the love.
Issue, not the money. And then so we work on some of those beliefs, and then we have honest conversations with entrepreneurs, and we say, one of the questions I find interesting is, would you fund you? Knowing how you treat money, how you handle it, your relationship with it, would you fund you?
Wow.
And most of them say no.
Wow. Look at that.
Which then I say, okay, so that means you are actually trying to hoodwink the investor, or you're trying to, trick the bank then. Because you wouldn't trust
that's quite
yourself.
telling.
You wouldn't trust yourself with $1 million, boom, being put in your hands.
Do you not find one of the things that I've seen in terms of even growing myself personally to understand how money works and getting myself financially educated, it's been a mission almost in terms of brainwashing my mind. And I found that, I was an intelligent person, I did well in school and so on, but there were so many things that I had to unlearn. And it came to me the realization that a lot of things that we actually learn in school doesn't prepare us to be financially educated. And so, how do you go about handling that with the people that you teach, or even in your book? Because what I'd experienced is that, wow, geez, we've learned a lot from school, but one thing we definitely did not learn is financial education. And that's why a lot of us are stuck in making such bad financial decisions.
So interestingly, I have a BCom Economics and Finance. And how I started on this journey was I was at Standard Bank. I think it's okay to say.
Sure.
It's okay to say another bank.
Cool.
I was a business analyst. I was climbing the corporate ladder, etc., etc. And then my mother passed.
Oh, wow.
Right. So in my mother passing, I went back home to try and manage the family business. And also with that said, I always share that be careful that we all start as self-employed, but do try to build it up such that it has systems and it's more of a business than it's self-employment.
Yes.
Right. So I tried to work that out. It didn't happen. And then I started having to deal with family finances because I'm the oldest, firstborn, and got younger brothers and stuff. And then I realized that with a BCom economics and finance, working at a bank in debt review, Nochal, I applied for a loan first time in my life, and I was declined because with all that background, I didn't know a credit score. How did you pass school,
Yeah.
economics and finance, bank,
Yes.
and you did not know a credit score and you were declined? And I realized that accounting and finance versus financial education, these are different
Two
skill
different
sets,
things. Yes.
right? And it's sad because when we quote unquote smart, as in we did those fancy degrees and stuff like that, you find it difficult to then appreciate that how can I be bad at something that is seemingly obvious?
Yeah.
Because you deal with this thing every day, right?
Yes.
But just like learning how to drive, driving is obvious, but you still need to pass your learners and you still need to drive in a field and learn the basics.
Yeah.
So it's not inherently hard, but if it's never done, then you will not understand it.
Yeah.
And even with a degree in BCom, working in a bank, I was still struggling. And then that's how the business started, where I was like, okay, if I don't know this, how much more a nurse, a doctor,
True. Yep.
Doesn't
who's
have that
never even
background.
touched
Yeah.
the spreadsheets and Excel and all of those things, etc., etc. So that's where the business came from. And in terms of schools, so the nice thing about having it in the book version is that we've had sponsors that have bought like 1,000 copies.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, 2,000 copies, etc. And then we take them to high schools. And some teachers have done amazingly well where they become the book champion.
Wow.
And they add it as additional reading in English, or they put it in life orientation.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember one of the teachers in Insta Cape said the kids are having bigger dreams
Wow.
as they're going through. Because, for example, think of it this way: in Eastern Cape,
Yeah.
say Lalini Ukoko is uyachala, is planting cabbage, but she's only planting cabbage to feed the family.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you're in grade 10, you're in grade 11, you've got energy, you can learn, plant more, and go out in the weekend and you sell cabbage, etc., etc. And that could actually be the funds that allow you to register to do your course, etc., etc. So those are some of the ways that we've entered schools. We're in a conversation with an organization that teaches teachers to, over and above what they teach, to do leadership training, to do problem-solving thinking, and then we're going to add financial education, and then the teachers will be utilizing this and a workbook to then teach the kids. So that's that element of getting into schools.
Sure, and that's really, really needed. What do you think are some of, like, maybe just one or two blockages that you find with individuals when it comes to winning at the money game? You've spoken about the relationship with money. Is that top of it, or are there other elements as well?
So for me, I think it's psychology.
Okay.
I posit that 70% of it is psychology. The numbers are, I think with grade 10 in my day, higher grade, standard grade maths, you'd figure out there, unless of course, obviously you want to be an investor and you need to work out compound interest and the like. But for most of it, it's quite basic, the numbers, right? So it's the psychology. And for me, what I found the most telling is, how does this entrepreneur value themselves? How do you validate yourself?
How do they see themselves?
How do you see yourself, right? So if your foundation of self-worth is not, I would say, spiritual or firm, then you will really struggle in this money thing. Because what I say is, don't try to fake spiritual or emotional scars with physical items.
Okay.
You will never have enough money for that.
Very powerful.
Right? So we buy that fancy car, we buy because we buy certain clothes. We want to show that we have arrived. But you just being born is enough. You are a diamond. Just being you. Not saying don't get nice things, but don't get things that you're trying to validate yourself that end up getting you in trouble financially.
Because they can't define you.
They can't define you. And the sad thing is that it's even in the book when Kulu makes that mistake, and he realizes that when he loses that toy, he realizes that a lot of the people that said, hey, you've done it, actually were wishing you badly.
You see?
Like if let's say we're 3 friends and I win the lotto. Are you really happy for me? Right? There's a part of you that's a bit envious.
Of course, because you're a human being.
Yeah. And then you'll help me blow this money away because why didn't you win the lotto? Right? So for me, it's how do you value yourself? And if you have faith and if you see yourself as God's child, then you have more than enough value. And you don't have to source that from things per se. So for me, that is what I found. I remember this other coaching session, and this young entrepreneur says, I want to build a business to show that I'm good enough.
Wow, that's so layered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we don't buy with our logic, especially when we buy, we know that the dumb things. A whole CA will go and they know the numbers don't make sense, but they'll go and buy it because of the emotional, the validation. How do people see me? Abantu bazothini? I'm at this stage now. I must do this, etc., etc. Also, our weddings, most of us. Most of my mates' weddings, you're looking at 500K and above.
What?
And I'm like, for one day, champ.
Yeah.
Okay, I put it more politely than that, right?
No, we must say it as it is. For one day.
For one day.
For one day.
For one day. But
that could be invested in so much more.
So who are you doing that for? So that's one. And then the other side of it is lack of vision. If I go to a mall down the road and I have no vision for my finances, there is nothing stopping me from buying an expensive purse, an expensive shoe, because there's no vision of this business getting to a certain level. I remember there's a client that I was doing a session with this, and we've been doing it for like the past 4 years now. So every year they have a different cohort, etc. And one of the alumni came to the session that we did in Soweto, and he said, "Dude, thank you so much. We did the session 2 years ago when he was part of it."
Yeah.
And he says, "I have over 2 million rand in my account."
Wow.
And he said, I never had a problem with making money in my business. I had a problem with keeping it.
Keeping it.
And why wasn't he keeping it? Because there was no solid vision. And now that we did the vision exercise of his business, now he is putting it there for a certain vision. Right. And the other one, for me, it's, and funny enough, I'm going through this one.
Yeah.
It's handing over authority. Because sometimes we let our businesses define us. Right? So who are you? I'm the Manifundi guy. I'm the no, you Amla first. Right? And when you don't know how to separate the two, I find that an entrepreneur cannot scale because you don't hand over authority to others or trust others. No one can do it as good as no. Trust me.
You can't grow.
You can't grow, and then you are stuck. And also you can't really collaborate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, that the scale conversation is usually more of a trust conversation and a giving authority.
Giving authority
away. Yeah.
Sure. Amazing. Such incredible insights. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to kind of throw the ball into your court at this juncture, Papa Biz, just in terms of the various insights that Mlamuli has shared with us. What is standing out for you the most?
I'll put it like this, and I don't want you to take this lightly. What I've picked up from this is you're a gift. You're a true gift. Because some of the stuff, when I go through all of the books that I read, it's just because that's what my mother put inside of me. And I think, there's some people that need this information. And I wish there was somebody even just in South Africa just to package this correctly, that it can really reach them, that when they see it and they read, it's like, no, but he's like me. And it can invoke the change in the same way, the change that I received. So that's what I'm left with here. I mean, we met in a WhatsApp group, in a book reading WhatsApp group, and he knows I got so frustrated with everybody because they weren't reading fast enough. But yeah, you're a true gift, and really continue with this work. It's really needed, and it's one of the number one things that I often talk about is financial education. And so thank you for this work.
Absolutely. I think that's a big takeaway for me as well, is that you are doing the important work of normalizing the money conversation. And conversations around money are awkward. They are embarrassing. We shy away from it. We don't even have it in our own homes with our spouses, our children, our parents. And these are the very people that we are actually communing and using our money on and doing life together. So this is such important work. I think in closing the conversation, if a person wants to reach out to you, maybe they need coaching, maybe they need to be part of the programs that you offer, or would like to even purchase a copy of the book, how do they get in touch with you?
Okay, no, thank you. So interesting you say we don't talk about money as families. One of the things I do, if I'm attending your wedding or something like that, I usually gift the couple a copy of the book. And I remember someone shared that he gifted it to a younger person that he knows, and they were on the cusp of breaking up their engagement because they were fighting over the money thing. Money is the second leading cause of divorce, by the way. And what the book does, because the conversation is happening with Mkhulu Mbata and Gogo Mbata and Mfundo, it allows you to discuss the money topic, but not based on, you did this, but based on the examples that happen in the story of the book, the characters in the book. So I found that to work amazingly well. And I always say that, remember my gift of building the bridge. The book is about finance, but it's written from a story perspective. My drama side, my songbook side, where it's Mkhulu and Gogo Mbata having a conversation with their grandson, Mfundo Mbata. And they're just relating how they traverse this journey to financial success. And then in terms of where they can get the book is available, exclusive books, bargain books, Take a Lot, SA Books Online. You can also get the ebook version there. I think those are the retail spaces that the book is at. And then in terms of services, I'm on the socials, predominantly LinkedIn, client versus customer. Predominantly LinkedIn, Mlamuli Mbambo, Instagram, TikTok. There's no dancing though, but we're on TikTok. It's Mlamuli Mbambo. And then if you want to drop an email, it's bookings@manifundi.org.
Brilliant. Sure. Such an important conversation, Monetizers. I really hope that it has enlightened you in terms of our relationship with money and the journey that we are on in terms of money, and the fact that people don't pay our businesses, they pay us. So are we being good custodians of this money? Gosh, such amazing nuggets that we've learned today. Please share in the comment section what your aha moment is, what has really stood out for you. And make sure you're following Mlamuli Mbambo on LinkedIn and other social media platforms so that you can see what he's up to and you can plug into his ecosystem as well. And of course, you definitely want to get a copy of the book, Winning at the Money Game. Now, Monetizers, it's your turn to tell us everything that you enjoyed about today's episode, and make sure that you're following us on all social media platforms. It's at Monetize Your Business. Until the next conversation. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.